Hey guys, and welcome to another Sasquatch Theory podcast. On this episode, we have Steve from Georgia, and he had ongoing activity throughout his life, and he wanted to speak openly about it with all of us and share his experiences here on Sasquatch Theory. Sasquatch seem to be attracted to certain people, and they seem to have activity throughout their lives with no explanation as to why. What are your theories about people having activity throughout their lives and for some reason it just keeps happening to certain individuals? What do you think about that, and do you believe there's a supernatural aspect behind it, or possibly they are attracted to certain people's energy or possibly their pheromone? Have you had a Bigfoot encounter, and would you like to share it with me here on Sasquatch Theory? If so, please get in touch with me sometime. Alright guys, with all that being said, let's dive straight into Steve's Bigfoot encounters from the state of Georgia. Alright Steve, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for asking. Steve, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your Bigfoot encounters and experiences from the very beginning.
All right. I'm originally from out west, West Coast area. I'm not going to go into a lot of great detail about it, but I've been a carpenter most all my life. I worked in construction, concrete, framing, trim work, soffits, stuff like that. But anyway, so I guess my first experience would be, or at least let's say what put it on the radar. I moved to Georgia, and this was probably in 2001, I think it was. And so, living my life out here like normal. So we get into, say, fast forward about 10 years, we get into the general financial crisis, whatever they call it, where the economy went down there for a couple of years. So I found myself with some extra time on my hands. Work was real slow, and I just kind of wanted to fill my week doing working here and there, but it was very hit and miss. So I had applied to another company that I used to work for previously in Arizona, and that was accepted. But I had a couple of months to kind of wait to ride out before I moved and went back out west. So to kind of fill the time, I would just work a couple of days here and there, or a day, but it was slow. So I had that extra time. So I would go camping and spend time outside. It's just something I enjoyed doing. So I would go camping up in LJ. Um, there's a few other places up there. I'm not going to go into a great detail about those, but I would go camping, and I would go sometimes 2-3 days in a row. So I was out one time, and I thought, well, maybe I'd scout out an area, maybe to do some hunting or something before, if I had any time, or maybe an area that maybe if I had ever got an opportunity to do some hunting. So I would just kind of scope out areas for deer. I would look, I'd follow deer trails. I would look for just areas here and there. So when I would go camping, I would go up to like trailheads, park. I would look out some of the wildlife management areas, and I would just go traipsing around just all over the place. So one night, it was, well, towards dark. Let's start it that way. It was getting kind of late. And I thought, well, I hadn't checked this one area, and I was looking at a map, kind of a, what they call topographical maps, I guess you could say. So I was looking at this, and I saw this one trail that kind of followed along this creek, river, creek, or whatever you want to call it. A little bit bigger. It's known for being like a decent trout stream. So I got into an area, parked, climbed out of the truck, and so I thought, well, let's maybe go up in there a couple of miles, mile and a half, 2 miles, whatever. So I kind of following along, and got up there, and it was looking pretty good. And I saw a lot of white oak up in there. I saw where acorns and everything were growing. It looked like a pretty decent little area, but it was just cool. I'd see little deer here and there once in a while. You'd hear, squirrels. So it seemed like a pretty It seemed like all the necessary things for a decent deer population were in the area. So I walking up through there, and I got up in there a little ways, and I found like a little field area. I thought, now this might be kind of cool. I have to check to see if it was legal to hunt in the area, but at least I was just in there, kind of just checking it out. There was oak, and it was just all kinds of maple, and just all kinds of some beautiful. And that's the other thing too. I just enjoyed being out. So me being a carpenter, I've got an affiliation with trees, so I've always enjoyed, just looking at how healthy plants and stuff are. It was just a beautiful area. Anyway, so coming back, I made kind of a wrong bend on a trail. It was getting kind of late, and I thought, well, I better get back down to my truck. So as I'm coming back down the trail, I thought, this doesn't look right. So I must have made a wrong turn someplace. Anyway, so I had a flashlight and stuff with me. I always carried a few things with me, just your normal, a little knife, a little flashlight, some water, just some of your basic stuff. Anyway, so I dug out the light, turned it on, and I figured, man, I better get myself straightened out so I can get back to my truck because it is going to get really dark and it's starting to get a little bit chilly. And so I'm going down through there and I'm trying to get myself straightened out. Well, it's like I said, it's starting to get dark. I'm down in this kind of you're in the mountains, and it gets darker in the mountains a little bit quicker. So as I turn on the flashlight, I'm walking down through there, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around, well, where did I make a wrong turn? So I'm walking down there through a little ways, and I start hearing something. I don't know what, just a faint, little crack of a limb or a stick or something. And I'd stop and I'd look, shine the light around. Now it's getting a little bit dark. I'm still, like I said, I'm still a little bit worried. It's like, where did I make that wrong turn? So I'd shine I'm kind of on a hillside, and I'd shine the light up in there. I didn't see anything. I really didn't think too much of it. Animal, maybe a limb fell. I don't really know. So I continued on down this little trail, trying to figure out where I made my wrong turn. So I'd walk down through there, and then I hear something again, and it sounded like I was hearing like it could have been a deer. I wasn't really sure. It was just odd. I just because when I'd stop, the sound would stop, and I'd shine the light back up on there again, and I couldn't see anything. So I continued on down, and finally I figured out where I had done. I just made a wrong turn, and the trail came back together. It was like a little fork in the trail. So I got myself headed back down, but then as I was kind of getting myself straightened out, headed back towards where I parked my truck, I was hearing this again. So this went on, a couple, three times. And finally it stopped. And then as I was getting back to where I'd parked the truck, it's like, man, it just left me just with this really, just a little, how, I don't even know how to describe it. Kind of a freaked out feeling. It's like, what the heck was that? That was just strange. But anyway, I figured it could have been a deer or something. But, we have it in our mind. We just kind of blow things off. So I got back to the truck and just went about my normal business. And anyway, so I didn't really think too much about that much after that. Once I got back to the truck, it was just kind of a fleeting thought, but it was just kind of a creepy thing that you just remember. So you kind of file that in the back of your mind. So anyway, I think I made one more camping trip up in the area. And that particular time, I don't think I really had any other issues that time around. So fast forward now, I moved to Arizona for a couple of years, and we went camping one time up in what's called the Mongolian Rim, which is up by Flagstaff. And I remember being up there. We were doing some camping up that way. Myself, a girlfriend I had at the time. And I can remember being up there, and she knew the area a lot better than I. She'd been up there with her family and stuff quite a few times, and I was just kind of going along for the ride. I didn't really know the area all that well. I knew Flagstaff. I didn't know where this camping ground was, but beautiful area. They knew it was up by this small, like a small lake, more like a good sized pond. But I remember being up there one night, and I mean, man, we had some kind of loud noise. I can't really say it amounted to people might call it some kind of a scream or some kind of a, I don't know. All I know is this thing, I don't know what kind of animal could create this kind of sound, but it was loud. And I mean, it just freaked all of us out. We were out there, we had these little pop up campers that we were sleeping in. We were out there having a fire. And so it was probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 o'clock at night, something like that. I think we had maybe a beer or something like that. But I know that was creepy. It came off from maybe up on a mountainside somewhere. And anyway, so that's just kind of, you file these things in the back of your mind. It's like, that is just, didn't sound like a wolf, didn't sound like a bobcat, didn't sound like any kind of sound that I ever knew. And I spent enough time out in the woods and stuff as a kid. I was in the Boy Scouts, and we did all kinds of camping and stuff like that too as a family. Never heard any kind of sound like that. The depth and the volume of this thing was incredible. Anyway, so I guess what I want to do is just kind of go forward another few years. I was there in Arizona for a few years, worked out, but I missed Georgia and I wanted to get back down this way. So I moved back down to Georgia. This was probably 2013, right in that area. So when I got back to Georgia, I decided I wanted to buy some land. So I found a little 3 acre, 3 lots together is really what it was. And so I bought this little bit of acre. I kind of put it all together as being 3 acres. Kind of made it, kind of combined it into being one big lot. So I started building my garage, and I started, I had a guy come out and do some grading just to kind of put the initial pad and stuff in, and then I also rented a tractor, and I did some more grading because I wasn't completely happy with what he had done. And so as I started doing a lot of this activity, I was cutting down brush and I was burning because it's legal down here to do that. So I would burn stuff, I would stack up, things where, I'm doing this while I'm working and I'm also doing this like on the weekends and stuff. So I was up in Atlanta working and coming down here on the weekends. So a lot of the activity that I was experiencing was down while I was down here on the weekend. So anyway, I'm building my garage or had started doing that. First, I'd finished grading the lot, but I was noticing ice shine, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And I really didn't think too much of it. But then one night, um, I was burning something, or no, getting ready to. I was sitting down. It was getting a little bit chilly. We're getting into autumn, so the nights are starting to cool off. And I built a little fire, and I'm sitting out there. And I had a girlfriend down here with me, and we're just kind of sitting there yakking and just chilling out. And I'm shining the light around. It's getting on dark. It's probably 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we had a good day. She was a lot of great help for me and just a very giving person. So she was helping me kind of clean stuff up and just getting brush piles and stuff together. So I'm shining the light around and I see some ice shine. And I didn't really think too much of it. It wasn't terribly big, but it was down over one of my brush piles. And and I'm looking at it and I picked up a little rock or something. I threw it over by the brush pile. Well, this thing didn't even flinch. Just kind of hunkered down there. And I got up and I shined the light and I walked over to it. And someone told me just, I don't think if it's a wild animal, I don't know that I want to just go walking over there. So I said, hold on. I said, take this flashlight. Because she was sitting there behind me. I said, keep the light on there. So I came in, I grabbed my shotgun. I thought, well, just in case. So I went over there and I threw another small rock over that way. And nothing. But I walked over closer to it. Now, that's a pretty good sized brush pile. Brush pile was probably 3, 4 feet high. And I was gonna burn all this stuff the next morning. But I'm looking at this thing, and this thing's not even flinching. I start walking over. I got the shotgun in my hand. She's holding the flashlight. And I walked over closer, and just something inside me just said, this thing's not threatening me. This thing's not growling at me. It's not doing anything. I just backed away. It's not bothering me. Let's just let it be. So I backed away, put the shotgun up. I think I just kind of let the fire die down and just called it kind of a night. But it was just kind of a weird. Uh, it put you on guard. Let's just put it that way. When you throw in a rock at something and it's not taking off, I think most wild animals would kind of back off or growl or something. This just didn't do that. And just like I said, something inside of me just said, "Well, just leave it alone. It's not threatening me, so just let it be." I was always taught not to shoot at something unless it's threatening or kind of a more a dangerous situation. Anyway, so I put the shotgun back, went inside the camper, and just kind of just called it a night. So, but that you remember that kind of stuff. So anyway, so we'll move forward a little bit. This maybe 6, 8 months later, we've gone through spring. We're into the next year, so I started building a garage. So, um, so I'm building a garage, and I'm putting the what do you call it, the OSB, the plywood, you might say, on the side of the garage. I'm out working on this garage one night, and it's getting on. I'd been working on it through the summer, and the weather's starting to get colder, so I'm kind of wanting to get things sealed up. I'd had the concrete poured, I'd framed it, and I'm just trying to button it up, like I said, for the winter and stuff. So I'm up on the extension ladder, and I'm working on the back of the garage. So I've got trees and stuff out behind me because I didn't take everything down to the limits of the property. But I'm up there on the ladder, and we're getting on. It's probably 8:30. I've got like the highest part, like up where the roof angles come down. You might say on the flat side where the roof angles come down. I had trusses and stuff up there, so I'm trying to put the OSB on these trusses. So I'm having to make these angled cuts for the roof and whatnot. And that's like the last little bit of stuff I got to do. So I'm up on this ladder, and I'm up there just kind of tacking the stuff. I'm kind of holding it up on there. I'm taking a couple of nails and bam, 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 drive those. Then I move the ladder over, I kind of just get it to where, and all of a sudden I hear a tree fall, just crap, bam. Tree falls over, and I thought, boy, that's kind of weird. There hadn't been any rain, any wind, nothing that would just knock a tree over like that. But lo and behold, there's a tree that fell over that's not too far behind me. So I'm up there a little bit longer, and I'm out there banging away. And I got 1 or 2 more sheets that I got to put up. And these aren't even full sheets. These are just like half sheets because I'm kind of getting up there where it's not too, where I can handle it. And it's just not too big a deal, but just wanting to just kind of get wrapped up before dark. So I'm up on there, and I'm working on maybe the last sheet or two, and I'm cutting, and I climb up on the ladder. And here I got plywood in my hands. I'm climbing up this ladder, but I've got a piece of 2x4 that I can set the plywood on, and that I kind of tacked up on it just to kind of hold the weight while I'm up there banging around, just trying to, maneuver it into place. So I get the piece of plywood in place, and I'm driving another nail. And this, probably from the first tree, maybe about 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes had elapsed. I'm not really sure, but somewhere, it did probably about a half an hour, right in that area. All of a sudden, I hear another tree come over. And it's like, holy crap, what the heck was this? So I nailed that up, and man, that really bugged me. I could not even tell you. I'm getting that feeling again, like the hair on the back of my neck is going up. I'm just like on guard. It's like that just doesn't happen. So I wrapped it up. I didn't know what was going on. 2 trees falling, no rain, no wind. This just huge question mark. It would really bug me. I couldn't believe what I just went through. I'm banging around and this tree falling. It's like, this just doesn't happen. This is not normal. So, all right. So I get the garage kind of buttoned up. I wrap it with that white siding or that house wrap. What do they call it? The tie, I think it's called. So I wrapped that all up, and so this is probably let's see, that was probably 2014, I'm gonna say. So I left it wrapped for quite a while. Really, work was going good, but my time, I just didn't have a lot of time. So I left it wrapped. At least it was wrapped through the winter and stuff. So, and I just kind of left it at that, but I would get down here. I like coming down here on the weekends. It was just my way of getting out of the city and whatnot. And every once in a while, I would hear weird sounds. I hear owls. I'm down here in the camper and whatnot, and I would hear owls. And I'd like getting up at night, it's quiet. And of course, at the time I smoked, so I would sometimes get up in the middle of the night, go relieve myself, and whatnot. And numerous times I would hear owls. Kind of what made the owl sound strange was I would hear an owl over one way, then I'd hear a response over another way. Not that that was so unusual, but it was just like two or three. And it was just kind of weird how they would just kind of sound off. And I didn't really think too much of it. I've heard other things, like in the middle of the night, you hear a thump, a crack, some just weird sound. You don't think too much of that. But I always enjoyed the deer. I also used to throw out apple scented corn for the deer and stuff like that. So I did this for a couple of years. So one night I'm down here and I hear this is about 3:30 in the morning. So I'm outside. I had a cigarette and I'm out there puffing on a cigarette and it's quiet. And I hear some noise over behind the garage. Well, I put up a fence on because that was one of the things I did when I first bought the property. I put up a fence on around the perimeter, not of the whole acreage, but of the immediate area where I was going to be building, just to secure the area while I was, because I was only coming down on the weekends. So I hear some noise, and this is where I'm throwing this apple center corn. So I grabbed a flashlight and I shined it over by. Oh, you know what? Let me back up for a second. This is important. I've got a portage on that I keep down here on the property at the time. And this actually happened about 2 days before, and I'd forgotten about this. I'm walking down the driveway because I don't have a septic tank down here at that particular point. So I'm having to use the portage on for the toilet amenities and all that kind of stuff. So I'm walking down the portage on, and I'm walking down the driveway, and I get to about almost even with where the portage on is. Now this is probably 100 feet from the camper because the camper's like parked parallel with where the garage is. So I'm walking down the driveway, and I get to where I'm just getting ready to go over towards the portage on, which is just sitting off to the side there. So as I get to where almost where the portage on is, I hear this little rip, and I feel this vibration. This was a very quick, very deep kind of a growl. And I thought, no, this does not happen. I feel this vibration down in my stomach. I mean, literally, I stopped in my tracks. But man, I got to the bathroom too. I I'm looking around. I've got a flashlight in my hand. I'm shining light around. I don't see anything. I don't see any ice shine. Yeah, but it literally, because of the vibration and the growl, the depth, I can't even describe the depth of the growl. So, but literally stops, and I thought, well, man, I gotta go to the bathroom. So I just went in there, did my business, and got back into the trailer pretty quick. So this other episode now, that was the growl and the feeling down, and that feeling I'm talking about was literally, it vibrated my stomach. So I don't really know how to really explain that, except later, as I as we'll uncover this. This is what I think may have been that kind of infrasound, or whatever they call that, zap feeling, whatever you want to call it. So so about 2 days later, this is when I get back up in the middle of the night. I'm out. I'm having a cigarette. This is when I'm outside. I hear this noise. Now, I've got, like I said, I've got a fence all around this property. I've got two good sized gates you can come in at. So I hear this sound, and it's a little cracking sound, stuff like that. So I grab a flashlight and I lit up some deer. Well, I've got these deer right over by the corner on the outside of the fence, all backed up by this corner of the fence. And I'm standing there and I'm shining. It's like, why are these deer just standing there? Why aren't they just eating? They're acting nervous. They're all huddled together, and they're looking around. Their ears are twitching. They're moving. These are the white-tailed deer, and they're moving around. There's four of them. There's four of them, and they're moving around. So I'm shining the light around, and I see a pair of eyes. They kind of got they're hunkered down by a tree or something that's kind of off on the other side of these deer. And I can't really see a whole lot because my line of sight, I've got a line of trees that are off behind the fence line. I've still got a couple more trees inside, but it's kind of blocking the view a little bit. And these deer are like on the other side, pretty good sized pine. It's like sits pretty close to the corner. So it's kind of blocking a little bit of my view. So I walk around the garage and I come across the front of the garage to where the other side of the fence is. That way I've got a wider field of view, I guess you could say. So I've got the deer lit up, and every once in a while I'm catching more eye shine, which is kind of over on the other side of the deer, which is more out where I beyond the fence line, but still in my tree line. So I'm shining the light around, and I come by this. I've got a great big, it's probably a 2 foot or maybe even a 30-inch diameter pine tree that's out there. And I'm looking where the deer is, and as I come across where this tree is, where this pine tree is, I'm at the base of this pine tree. I catch a partial glimmer of one eye. So so I'm looking at this thing literally from the side. I'm over by the fence, and this tree is about maybe 60 feet, give or take. I'm looking down at the deer, and I'm thinking, why are those deer just there? So as I'm moving the light around and over by this pine tree, I catch that grandmother. Then this thing turns its head. Oh my God! When this thing turned its head, those eyes look like two flashlights. They're two kind of low-powered flashlights. Those things looked like they were size of golf balls. They were bigger. They were further apart, and I realized that I caught other eye shine on the backside of these deer. I'm seeing this thing, and it was looking towards where the deer are, out towards the back of the garage. I'm in the front of the garage, kind of shining the light down that way. Oh my God, I'm in the middle of something I don't want to be, because I'm not much bigger than deer when you get down to it. I felt like I'm in the middle of a hunt. That's the only way I could do it. Something had rounded these deer up, and and I'm in the middle. So all I did was I just beat a path back to the trailer, and I mean, man, it scared the living tar out of me. I was trembling. I can't even, man, I cannot even. It freaked me out so bad. I mean, I grabbed the shotgun. I made sure it was loaded. I set it right by the bed. I, oh my God, bring it back. Anyway, um, I, I didn't even, I didn't even know what to do. This was, like I said, this was probably 3:30 in the morning. Light would be coming, another couple hours. I couldn't even go anywhere. I was just so freaked. I realized I was in the middle of a hunt, and these things were there. And then, of course, my mind is racing. I'm thinking back to 2 days prior where I got that growl. And all of a sudden, the realization that I've got one of these creatures that are here, because what I saw when I lit this thing up was I couldn't get a real hard outline. I didn't get a lot of details because there's also other vegetation and stuff at the base of this tree. But when this thing turned its head, I realized this is something much bigger than I am, because the eyes and the placement of the eyes, the spacing between the eyes, this was nothing. It was completely different than a deer. I'm looking at something that's like a predator, something that's got two forward facing eyes. A deer, when you see their eyes, you can see how their eyes are like on the sides of their head. This thing was a forward facing creature. Um, it was black as it was like looking into a hole. I mean, it's like looking into the depth. You shine the light, you can't get a positive. Um, Maybe because the hair, I don't really know how to describe that, but I realized that there's at least two of them, because I saw something that was similar on the other side of the deer. But when I saw that one, and I'm about maybe 60 feet from it, oh my God, I can't even. The reality hit that this is not some place I want to be. And like I said, I beat a path back into the trailer, and I made sure the doors were locked. I turned the lights on. I grabbed a shotgun, and I mean, I was trembling. I was nervous. Oh my God, I couldn't even. I don't even know how to even really describe how you feel like you could have been on the menu. That's about the only way, that had I maybe acted in a threatening manner, or all I saw was I was in the middle of a hunt, and that's not someplace I wanted to be. And I beat a path back in this camper. And like I said, I was a nervous wreck. All I wanted to do was get off the property, but I wasn't going to go anywhere until it was full light. I laid down, and I mean, I must have dozed off at some point, because I do remember waking up, and I do remember getting out very cautiously. In fact, I think I even had the shotgun in my hand when I walked out of the camper. I don't really remember too much, but I walked around, and like I said, I waited till light, because I was just a basket case. My mind's racing. I'm trying to add all this up in my mind. My mind is just like in a state of, man, I can't even really describe, but my mind was racing 100 miles an hour. How can this be? How is this possible? What did I just witness? Of course, the Bigfoot by this time is going through my mind. I'm thinking back to all these other things, the eye shine that I've seen here and there. I'm thinking back to the couple of nights before with the toilet and the growl. Then to see one off, and that was all I could. I didn't see this other one other than just some eye shine, but the deer were not moving. But that one that I saw at 60 feet away, when I lit the side of that thing up, all I could see is a mass of black, kind of behind some other shrubs. But when the two eyes looked at me, that was what you just knew something. This is something way bigger than me, and not the place you wanted to be right then and there. So anyway, so it, man, I did not even come back to this property except on the weekends, and I did not, I mean, I had a place I was staying. I did not come back here for quite a while, except during the day, and I would come down here, do whatever I needed to do, and I would go back to Atlanta. And when I was here, I was armed, and I was walking around the property armed. It just freaked me out so darn bad. I don't even know what to say on that regard. But it just put me. I couldn't sleep. It gave me a fear that I can't even. I can't even describe. But man, you talk about feel like just a piece of meat, or just like you could be on the possible menu. That is something that I don't think anybody wants to experience. Um. Anyway, so trying to push out of my head because I don't like reliving that. Um. Moving on. I realized this was through the progress of a couple of years passing, and just realizing that everything I have is down here on this property, and that I didn't really have much choice but to get back and try to settle myself with this. And it honestly it took a couple of years, and that because I realized that I didn't have any choice but to come back down here. So little by little, I would come down. I would stay a day here and a day there, and over time, walking around the property, I was I slowly just kind of reoriented myself and kind of psyched myself that if this thing wanted me gone, this thing could have taken me out probably at any time. And it kind of brought a little bit of, I can't really say peace, but at least a certain amount of reconciliation that, if this was a predator and was out after me, it could have taken me out whenever it chose to do so. Because once I realized how big these things are, um, and of course, you start investigating some of this stuff because you become obsessed with it. And I did that. This went on for quite a while. Anyway, so once I started getting more comfortable with coming down here back on the property, I eased off. I wasn't quite so um, so nervous, but that took quite a while. So 2 years progress forward, and every once in a while, I'm hearing rock clocks. You'll hear something snap. But now I also had an interesting thing that happened one night. I was out here early. It was early morning there again. I like getting up 2, 3 sometimes in the morning. May have been listening to a podcast. I don't even know because I did become pretty much obsessed with some of this Bigfoot stuff, and I would listen to all kinds of different podcasts because you want to know what's going on, and you try to wrap your head around it, but it also brings a little more understanding of the subject in general. So I knew I had something going on, and that was the only thing, was that there was some kind of a Bigfoot. Oh, and I think if I recall, I think I sent you, Miguel. I think I sent a footprint. That was that same morning after I had the experience with the with the Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it, over by the tree. I started walking around. That's when I found the footprint. And I thought, okay, well, that gives me at least a little confirmation, aside from what I just witnessed the night before. So, anyway, so now, like I said, a couple of years went by. I started coming back down to the property. I was a little more comfortable. I kind of over time um, became more relaxed. So as I'm down here now, I'm spending more time down here. I'm thinking about doing some other stuff. I think I started breaking ground on the house by that time. So one night, I'm looking for my coffee cup. So, and I realized I left it out of my truck. I got it right here in my hand. Anyway, so I was walking down the driveway, and I got a flashlight in my hand, and I'm walking down the driveway, and I'm walking by where the toilet is. It's right the driveway. I got the truck sitting right there. So I'm digging the truck out, and all of a sudden, I'm shining the light over there. Something steps out. Now we've got an area between where the houses are built, where we've got some property that's kind of on the north side of me, and it's kind of where they were going to do phase 2 of this development, but they never did do it. So there's property out there. So I'm standing there and I'm looking in the truck, found the cut. So I'm getting ready to close the door on the truck, and I look up and I look over across the road. I see something step out. I see movement. I see a little bit of I see a tree move. And there again, I'm on edge from time to time. I've got a flashlight and I pan around looking for eye shine. Well, I see a couple of eyes, and then I see something. It's got to be on foot. It's fairly tall. My driveway comes up maybe 3 feet, 3.5 feet, maybe from the street level as you come up into the driveway itself. This thing steps out from behind a tree. Now, here again, it's dark. This creature's dark, but I didn't really shine it up in its eyes, but I'm still getting a little eye reflection. I did not try to light this thing. I don't know that I want to see this thing that much, but this thing just kind of gave me a visual of it. And there's this tree that's out there that's probably it's been taken down now, but the tree is probably, I don't know, 10, 12 feet tall. It was a little bit shorter than that, but it stepped out, and it stepped out just for it didn't growl. It just kind of let me know that, hey, I'm here. And the growl and all that came over from that same general direction. It's just where it's between two properties, between two houses, but it's kind of a pathway, you might say, where deer come out of there. This is usually where the deer cross and will cross my property, go to the other adjacent properties behind me, and they would always cross over on that one other acre where I didn't have it fenced. So this thing steps out for just a second and then steps back in behind this tree. Didn't growl, didn't make any noise. To me, it was just like, I'm here. And by this time, I've seen eye shine. I've seen deer. So the eye shine used to spook me at first, but I've seen enough of it over the years that it was just kind of just one of those things. But when it stepped out, that was something that was different. It wasn't just like I was looking at deer. I was looking at, I guess the eye shine was kind of a green, maybe kind of a light green color. I'd say, yeah, I'd probably say like a light green color. But I do remember seeing the two. I didn't, like I said, I didn't shine the light up in its face because I thought, well, I don't really want to piss something like this off. But I just got enough of the light kind of up that way. But I got the reflection that stepped out for just a second or two and then stepped back in. And I thought, boy, that's weird, but thank you in a way. But okay, I know you're here. At least it wasn't as freaky as the previous experience, so that was okay. That didn't bother me near as much. Came back inside, made my coffee, went to bed. By this time, I've kind of gotten over some of the shock, but it's taken a long, long time by this time. So anyway, I really hadn't had too much other things happening here on the property. I would hear one of the unusual things was I remember I was out early one night, and these are infrequent. It's not like this is happening every week. This is maybe every few months, something will kind of be a little weird. I was sitting out and I was hearing, listening to these owls again. I'd hear an owl over here and hoo hoo hoo, and I'd listen to another owl over here, hoo hoo hoo. And then this is the same one. This is what struck me as a little weird. Then I heard this hoo hoo hoo, and these other owl sounds were like up in the trees far away. This other one was down ground level and over behind me. It's like, what is this? I didn't do anything. I didn't bother trying to light it up with a flashlight or anything like that. It's like, hoo hoo hoo. This is that 500-pound owl. It's like, you got to be kidding me! And it didn't even sound like it was just a terrible. It was a terrible impression of an owl. And of course, like I said, down at ground level and having this kind of a baritone voice, I just kind of chuckled. It's like, okay, that was pretty bad. So anyway, so that's just another one of them. And then one of the last ones that I had. And this was probably a couple of summers ago. Actually, there was one other thing. I remember walking down the driveway. I think it was going down to get something out of the truck again. Could have been something, maybe coming back from the bathroom. I don't remember exactly, but I remember I was just walking down the driveway. I remember telling my brother about this one. I'm walking down the driveway, and I took a couple of steps. I heard something else over in the other property. It's dark, and I had a little flashlight with me, and I hear boom, boom, boom. Kind of the same thing with it. And I stopped, and I lit up the other property a little bit. Didn't see anything. And I start walking again. So a couple more, two, three more, three steps, and I hear the same thing over in this other tree. It was pretty thick over there, and it was still summertime, so the vegetation's pretty. So I really couldn't see that much because we get a lot of sweet gum trees. Those things grow like weeds down here, saplings, pine saplings, stuff that's just fast growing, but still thick. So you can't really see for all the vegetation over there all that well. Um, So this on the second one, I stopped. I mean, I stopped. Now, my hackles are up again, and I'm kind of shining around in there, seeing if I can see anything. All of a sudden, I hear a loud snap, and I mean, literally, it's like a 22 or something like that going off. And I thought, okay, you're letting me know you're there. So I just head back to the camper again. Go inside. I said, yeah. I called my brother. I said, you would not gonna believe this one. I said, yeah. I told you about some of these other things. I said, I'm walking down the driveway and I'm here. I'm taking a couple of steps, and this thing's like almost matching me for a couple of steps. I stopped. It stopped, and I'm kind of looking around, and I start walking again, and I hear it again, and I stop. It stops again, and all of a sudden, this tree limb. I sat and I was telling him, Celebrate, guys, God, that's creepy. He goes, I don't know what to think about that. So believe me, I don't know what to think about it either. But anyway, it is what it is. I just kind of accept it as just like there's something out there. I'm not going to go looking for it. It ain't my thing. But something let me know it's there. And I guess considering everything else, at least that's kind of a courtesy to me. So I just stay out of the way. So this was that was a couple of years ago there. The other incident with the growl and with the deer and the other two, I would just say it's two of them. I could never really validate the one off on the other side of the deer, but other than the eye shine. But the one over here by the pine tree, that was definitely something that was definitely not on my radar. Nothing that I had ever seen before, but all I can guess was a Bigfoot, Yeti, whatever you want, or not a Yeti, a Sasquatch. The thing about it is this: is that it just there's just something there. And now this next incident happened about 2 summers, maybe the same summer I had the walking through. Okay, this is before they paved the road. So I'm driving home one night, heading back down to the property here. And it may have been no, I had moved down here by that time. I think I'd kind of wrapped things up in Atlanta, and I think I was living down here by that time. I'm driving down, and it's about, oh brother, it's probably not dark, but 8 o'clock. So it's still light, but it's late enough where the sun has gone down far enough that we've got tree shadows all across the road. So the road is like one solid color, just as far as being shadowed from the trees, but still light enough you can see. So it's about 8 o'clock, because I think down here in the summertime it probably gets dark about 9:15, 9:30, something like that. So I'm driving down the road, and I come around the corner, and what was I? I was in my little truck. My little truck's pretty quiet, so I'm driving down and around the corner, and I look up ahead of me, and I see something crossing the road. It's a couple hundred feet. And I slow down. What the heck is that? I know a deer. I mean, a deer is, you see a round bottom, you see a tail that's up. The deer have, very thin, small legs on them. They start with the normal back. You've got the head that's up with the muzzle, and the ears stick up over the head. This thing is none of those. This thing is what I would describe as more like uh, maybe like a chimpanzee. It was thick in the body and thick on all the legs, the muscles. The head that was up, because this thing was on all fours. The head was up, kind of just a rounded head, but you had no muzzle, had no, just kind of a flat face, no, no real face per se. I couldn't see any ears on it, not like a deer. Deer's ears stick up over the head. And this thing is uniform, and its back slightly sloped, meaning a deer's back is more level. This thing came across the road, and it was thick all down through its legs, feet, arms, whatever you want to call it, down to its. And I couldn't tell what had feet away. It was like it was a couple hundred feet ahead of me. It was just a, wow, a couple 3 seconds as it was crossing the road. But the thing that bothered me about it was not a dog, it was not a deer, because it was not a bear, because it didn't have the rump, or the didn't have the fat butt of a bear. This thing was lean. It had a muscular build to it, but it wasn't very big. It was about the same size of a deer. Its head and everything, but like I said, just a quick little skip across the. Uh, it wasn't even really a skip across the road. It had kind of a gait to it. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was just a real quick, just crossing, because I slowed down slowed down. I don't remember if I actually stopped, but I think maybe I did for a second, because it caught my attention, because how off and how strange looking this thing was. But it just went off into the woods, and as I drove by, as I got moving again, I drove by. I'm looking around. I didn't see where it went. I didn't see anything, because I looked off into the woods, but it looked like a fairly heavy crossing. It's coming out of an area that's kind of a low, what you would call a little holler down there. So it's kind of an area that kind of stays wet all the time. And it went off into this little path kind of between these other couple of properties. And but the thing that struck me as so odd about that particular thing is I did not see a tail. Uh, the appendages, the arm, leg, whatever you want to call it, were thick. They were thick all the way down to whatever it was. Well, I couldn't tell it was on knuckles or hands or whatever, but it looked to me, the best description would be kind of an orangutan. I don't think this thing was a mature one, because it did not look. It could have, if you compare it size wise, could have been maybe like not a orangutan, but a chimpanzee. Because of the build, because the arms were thick, the legs were thick, the bottom was just rounded, but the appendages were thick all the way down. Not like a deer. A deer will thin down to some very small, kind of delicate feet. This was built nothing like that. Its neck wasn't as long as a deer. Its head was more down, just above its shoulders, but its head was kind of round with a flat face, so there was no muzzle or anything like that. But I don't even know if it even noticed me. It kept its head straight, looking across the road and going on its path. But it crossed the road just in boom, boom, boom. Just like I said, I don't think it even noticed me. And it didn't seem to be in any kind of a hurry. It just kind of just walked across the road, just a couple, three steps across the road and up on the other side of the road, off into the bushes and the trees and doing its thing. So it was not a deer. It was not a bear. It was, I've seen all that out in the woods and all that. So I know very well what all that was. Like. But it looked like, if you looked at, I think the best build description would be that of an orangutan, like a mature orangutan. Because I think it was about the size of a deer. That would be about the best description. So maybe 30 inches, 36 inches at the shoulder, and then maybe its head stuck up a little bit higher. So it could have been, I don't even think it'd be 4 foot tall at the top of the head, maybe that or a little bit less. So anyway, and that was about. I guess that pretty much sums it up. So since then, other than just some rock clacks or kind of a strange loud noise every once in a while. Yeah, really. And I'm not hearing the screams like I mentioned to you that I heard up there in the Mongolian. I guess they call it Mongolian Rim. I'll hear a loud noise over in these woods behind me once in a great while, but I can't really even describe it. It sounds more like a bull would be maybe more just a loud braying of a bull. But I don't know if there's any bulls out here behind me. I think it's mostly so owned by paper companies. We got a few got a few ranches that are out there, but I know of one guy that's got a hunting lease. It's like 1,500 acres. It's just literally down and around the corner from me here, about a mile or two, maybe a mile and a half, something like that. But other than that, that's pretty much I think about the experiences and stuff. But it's enough to let me know that there's something out there. Um, I can't really give you a whole lot of description other than I don't know that I want to see one that close. And I've always kind of, other than me lighting that one up, which I probably really didn't want to even light it up any more than what I did. I don't know if I would have been able to see a whole lot. I've seen enough of the eyes. I saw that one during the day, that one that walked out across the road from me, and that's literally in my driveway, from my driveway. That one was probably, again, maybe 60 inches on the other side of the road by the shoulder. I think that's pretty much about it.
All right, Steve, I appreciate you for sharing your encounters and experiences with me. And it sounds like you've had a lot of activity leading up to these encounters. Whenever you saw that creature with the eye shine and you saw the big black mass, what did the eye shine look like and what could you see?
Well, the best way to describe it was I'm kind of like it was like looking into a black bush. You see, the eyes you could see real clear because they were so bright, and they're brighter than the deer's eyes. The what do you call it? The eye shine from a deer is definitely different. You'll get a white that comes from the deer. I get more of a green, and this is what I've seen commonly. It's a light green, and they're they're bigger. They're actually shinier. This is one of the things that really sets it apart from the deer. Is from my experience, the eyes are more reactive to the flashlight. I'm not going to say these are where have I heard people say were they shining themselves, but these are from the flashlights that I've shined out there, and I've got some pretty bright lights. But their eyes are bigger and they're brighter when they do shine back at you. It's almost like having a low powered flashlight looking back at you. The eyes are larger and they're set further apart. The deer's eyes are not that far apart. You can see and I'm sure you've seen it. When you even if you're driving down the roadside, you'll see where a deer is looking at you. The eyes are closer because their heads are not really that wide. These things' heads are much wider, therefore their eyes are going to be bigger and further apart. And that's the one noticeable thing that really, to me, sets them apart when I've caught the eye shine, is when they're looking directly at me, is when I light up their eyes, they're bigger and that spread between the two eyes. And this is one of the things that's a definitive difference. Um, and like I said, with that one blobby looking, or what are we going to call it, that mass that I was looking at, I couldn't see much in the way of any kind of detail because of the hairs, because this thing was either crouched down or laying down. I don't know which. But I also had other foliage and stuff that was kind of between me and it. But the light was bright enough that when it turned its head, I definitely got two good visible eyes looking back at me that were bigger and further apart. And that was the defining factor then and there that gave me that trigger, get the heck out of here. Because
Yeah.
once I realized that, I realized how the size difference. Because what I was looking at was bigger, far heavier, and in the middle of doing something, meaning probably going to be taking down a deer who just the other side of that fence, and I did not want to be there.
Yeah.
And
It sounds
yeah, I
like
mean, and what it made me feel like, it's either the deer or I could possibly be on the menu, and that's not something I wanted. So I beat a path, I made a beeline.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Do you think they were hunting the deer?
I would say so, because literally the deer were backed up. Because they were on the outside of the fence. They were literally backed up to the fence, almost their tails looking all around. This is what made me pan the light around out beyond them, because the way they were acting highly nervous and very agitated. And you'll see this with like buffalo and other animals. Where animals will kind of defend their young, your herd animals. And these were acting very skittish, very nervous, very flighty, so to say. And because you could see their, because that was the one thing, because their heads were moving around, their ears were moving around, and you could see the agitation. And this was one of the things that, that made me realize, okay, there's something going on here. Something, that's one of the reasons I went around the garage, because I wanted to get a better view, a larger area, having the garage in my line of sight. So as I walked around the front of the garage, and as I was panning the light around and got that one eye, that edge, it's looking, that sort of been the right eye. And then when the thing turned its head and looked at me, that's when I realized, oh crap. Once I saw how big the eyes were and the spread of the eyes, it's like this thing's, and especially with catching the other two eyes that were on the other side of these things must be hunting. So this is one on one side, and then I've got this other one's over by this pine tree. This is two of them. Now I don't know if there's more. I didn't see anything. I don't know if there's more of them. But by this time, something was already on my radar. I'm listening to podcasts and stuff like this, and I mean, man, all I can say was when I first initially started telling you about this, I could feel that creeped out, spooky, almost kind of living back in that moment. I could feel myself getting kind of jittery from it again. I'm almost like reliving the moment. Um, so when this thing turned its head, the only thing I can describe it as is you're seeing an eye, and you realize, okay, this thing's looking that way towards the deer, and it's the right eye, so it's facing, looking towards the back of the garage, towards the deer. And then when it turned to look at me, because I'm over on its, I guess you'd consider its right hand side. And when you see these two eyes that you recognize that are bigger and further apart than you. Now here again, I'm standing probably 60 feet from this thing. It's just directly on the other side, and the only thing separating between me and it is a 4-foot field fence, and that ain't much. I've watched the deer hop out like it's nothing. It just, you feel like, oh my gosh, no, 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 this is not where you want to be. Not at this moment in time. This is definitely not where you want to be. So, so I made that beeline back inside, and you don't really get, or at least I didn't get too much detail because you're looking at this black mass of hair or dark brown black. It looked black at night anyway. And all I got were the two eyes and maybe a rough eye. I mean, so the only thing I got was maybe kind of a shadow of the head, but I've seen hair and other crap like that, and there might have been, there again, it's also being blocked by some of this foliage. There's also down in the pine needles and whatever else vegetation's out there. So I didn't really get a clear shot of the body, but the head when it turned, that was with the eyes, because what you're seeing more than the black, when it turned its eyes, you're seeing two white things looking back at you that are by far bigger than your eyes and they're further apart. And it's that very moment you realize this thing's a lot bigger than you are and it's not where you want to
Yeah, absolutely. And
be.
you
I would
definitely
have
had
never.
some red flags before this encounter as far as
Oh,
the trees crashing down, getting the bad feeling, and hearing that growl that vibrated in your stomach. So I do believe this was Sasquatch that were on the property, and you were very smart to not approach it because you never know what these things are truly capable of.
how do you want to take the risk? And all of it, and there again, that because that 2 days prior, when I had that growl and then that vibration, that was a very that was a very freaky experience. I can't even describe. You hear the growl, and it was very low, very quick. It was just kind of a, but the vibration is like, how the hell? Sorry for the language there, but how does that happen? And there again, it's been enough time and enough times passed. That was it was 2017. That was December. December, yeah, it was about December. So it's been about, what's that been, 7, 8 years ago now, I guess, something like that. So, but there again, uh, you know, and then you see these other things. It's like, well, if this is like a family group or something like this, it's crossing the property or something that comes through every once in a while. They at least know that I'm aware of them, and I don't think they're quite as shy. And I think that has a lot to do with my seeing them. That's all I can really say about it. At least what happens right here.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people have had Bigfoot encounters during the daytime, including myself, but it does seem like these creatures move around freely at nighttime and they become very brave and their curiosity gets the best of them. What do you think their intentions were? I know we mentioned that they were possibly deer hunting, but why do you think they were coming up so close to the property?
Well, I think this property is kind of a pass through area because the way to kind of describe this, um, I'm a, I'm like sitting at the entrance of what would have been a second phase of this subdivision, but they had problems legally speaking with this property. So there's 30 acres that follows the whole length of the subdivision. My property, and so it's just literally across the road. So that would have been the entrance, and then my property is just one of those links that takes you. It's like a pass through area, or you're kind of in their case, a highway, I guess, or part of their where they cross through. And then behind me, there's thousands of acres, literally thousands of acres that go on for miles. And there's ponds, there's streams, there's a couple little streams right around here. If you go down the road, there's a little L in the road around the corner from me. I think I sent you a photo of a couple of bent over trees that were over that way. That's where those two trees were that right by where that little creek goes through over there. And then on the other side, going down, because I actually was looking at some of this property. They had some of this property that was for sale on this other subdivision. I was looking at some of that property here, 7 or 8 years ago when they had it up for sale. Out walking around there. In fact, you know what? I found a structure out. out over there. I forgot all about that thing. Forgot to tell you about that. I ran across something that was, I thought somebody maybe was doing a still or something out there. I found logs out there that were 6 and 8 inches in diameter that weren't cut, that were stacked up, that was kind of along this waterway that I was just telling you about. Because there's not like a little, it's kind of like down in another little holler that's down up over there, a little low area that's just above the creek over there. And this structure was kind of over that way. And I didn't really think too much of it. I found this, there was like an old piece. This is what made me think that maybe somebody else had built it. But the problem is these logs were big and there's no way to get a tractor or anything back there. And it wasn't like a teepee structure. There was a washed out area back there. And these logs were like all lined up across the top of this thing with this rudimentary plastic just put over the top of it. And actually called the real estate agent about it, told him about it. I said, I don't know if this is drugs or somebody's got a still out here, but you may want to check this out. And anyway, so I completely forgot about that. And that was just kind of a weird, just weird because these logs were so big. They were maybe 10, 12 feet long. They're all stacked across this one like little low area.
Yeah.
But I did call this real estate agent about it, and I mentioned it to him because he sold raw land, is what it is. That was like what he did. He worked for this one company that was his specialty. But anyhow, other than that, that was about it. Other than me getting tick infested going out there, so I know it was warm at that time because I remember having to come back and peel out of clothes and go through a major shakeout from walking the property.
Yeah,
So, but
absolutely. And it sounds like you're going to continue having Bigfoot experiences and possibly encounters in the future. It could be months from now, or it could even be years, but it sounds like they live around that area, and that probably is a travel corridor, or there's something stranger going on the property.
I don't know if there's anything strange going on the property. I do know that when I used to bring the dog down here before he passed away, my dog was always edgy being that he did not like being down here. In fact, he actually went with the ex girlfriend, and just a couple of years ago passed away. But when she would bring him down, he was always edgy when he was down here. I don't know. He would even in the hottest day, that dog would want to climb back into her vehicle and stay there. Go figure. I don't know what that's about, but it's just something great. Great dog. His friendliest, happiest, happy-go-lucky dog. I mean, friendly. Well, he get down here. No, man, he did not. I'd say, yeah, come here, come here. You don't need to be in there. 90 degrees outside. Why do you want to be in the vehicle? You come out, drink some water, and go climb back up in the vehicle, or you want to go lay under something. But he always reacted to like fireworks, things like that. He would hit for the bathtub or something, or closet. He did not like the sound of fireworks at all, or like lightning. The dog would just go nuts in a thunderstorm.
Yeah. The
But I
animals will
mean,
let you know, that's for sure.
oh yeah, I mean, he was a great dog. Got old and got hard of hearing, and actually got hit. So it was a sad day. He was a good boy.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that. And yeah, if you ever encounter anything else in the future, certainly feel free to reach out to me. And I really do appreciate you for sending all the photos yesterday. And it certainly does look like arches and structures out in the woods. And I told you to go check it out, and you said you have no interest, which I don't blame you, but you never know what you might find in there. And if you do go, definitely take someone else with you and
Oh
be
man, if I
armed
did,
for sure.
that's good. Well, listen, Miguel, I do appreciate your time and the opportunity to talk with you. And because for me, it's also good therapy, and I think anybody that needs to talk, and I would actually encourage people to reach out, if not to you, to somebody to, because I believe there's a certain amount of therapy in getting it out of your system. Because I know there's a lot of people that carry this around with them. I know it took it was hard on me. I fortunately, I've got family that will listen. They may not believe it, but they'll at least listen without judging, which helped. But still, the experience you go through when you see one of these things is off the charts. I
Yeah.
can't even, I can't even. It tears you apart because your mind is racing, trying to put this together in some kind of. So it's trying to associate with something that you can to make it believable in your own mind. And this causes a lot of people a lot of stress, uh, PTSD, I guess you could say, because I believe there is a lot of trauma that goes with it, mental trauma.
Yeah, I would agree.
I,
And when we're faced with obstacles in our lives, it triggers our brains and we think about it over and over. So when you encounter something like this, it really turns things up and you're constantly thinking about it, trying to hash things out and figure it out.
yeah, your mind is racing. You're just you're trying to make sense of it in any way, fashion you can. But you realize it's like this is not in our wheelhouse, so to say.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
well,
Nope.
listen, hey, I appreciate the time. I appreciate you taking the time and allowing me to speak with you. And it's been great for me. And hopefully, maybe this will encourage somebody else to reach out and speak with you about some of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do appreciate your time, Steve. And I believe you 100%. And it sounds like Bigfoot activity. So just be mindful that they're out there and definitely watch your back when you're out in the yard or out in the forest.
Boy, believe me, I do.
Yeah.
I At night, I don't. When I'm out here at night, I still have a flashlight in my hand, and I've got a flashlight that'll light up 2 football fields away. So
Yeah.
that was the one thing I did get because I realized one of the things I realized with animals, if you got a flashlight that's got a what do you call it, well, flashing modes on it, the animals really do not like that. They will probably back off faster from that than they will a gun
Yeah, it's a
because
good tool to have, that's for sure.
it plays havoc with their night vision.
Yeah. All right, Steve. Well, I appreciate your time today. And if you encounter anything else in the future, certainly reach back out to me.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. You take care. All right, Steve, thank you very much for sharing your Bigfoot encounters and experiences from the state of Georgia with all of us here on Sasquatch Theory. And it certainly does sound like these creatures are attracted to you, or possibly they have been living around that area for many generations, which very well could be the answer. I wanted to stop and thank all the listeners, everyone who has supported the channel, the people that like the videos, who have subscribed, the people that leave comments, and especially the people that are positive. I really want to thank you, and I wanted to mention there are a lot of big changes happening to the channel, and there's going to be a lot more Bigfoot encounters here in the near future, so just stay tuned for that. And if you have a Bigfoot encounter you would like to share with me, please contact me sometime at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. All right, until the next one, thank you everyone for listening, and be safe out in the forest.